Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 16 of Gaston's Great, a podcast, I think, highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services and looking forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We are highlighting another great organization this week and have Linda McConnell and Annie Anthony with us today. Linda is the Executive Director of the Gaston Literacy Council, and Annie is the co-coordinator, maybe I can say that correctly, co-coordinator of Reading Soulmates. That's an extremely big title, Annie. Linda and Annie, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you, Stephen.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm very excited about this. So we're going to get started quickly, as usual. So we'll start maybe with you, Linda. Can you just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. I was born in Texas, didn't live there very long, ended up in Gastonia where I've been most of my life other than going to school. I have 2 grown children and 4 grandchildren. I have a brand new one born last Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
And like spending time with them and like to work.
Have you paid a fine yet at Rotary for that?
I have not. I've kept that a secret until now.
Well,
so
guess what?
Get ready.
Luckily,
get ready.
actually, we don't meet tomorrow, so
shoot.
so I'll be sure to pass that along to Health and Happiness. Annie, what about you?
Well, I am originally from Gastonia. I am a product of Gaston County Schools and a graduate of Belmont Abbey College. My husband and I have been married for going on 26 years now. We have 3 wonderful children whom we adore. Our youngest just went off to college, so we are still adjusting to this concept called empty nesting. As you mentioned earlier, I'm the co-coordinator for the Reading Soulmates program at Gaston Literacy. When I'm not working, I enjoy reading. I enjoy cooking, eating when I cook. And because of all that eating, I enjoy a little walking as well.
Very good. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Ashbrook.
Very good. I'm a Ashbrook alum as well.
Awesome.
So,
this is Linda.
I am too.
Oh, I
and
forgot.
a Wolfpacker.
Well, we'll get to that.
I know. I knew we would.
We won't talk about that.
Oh, no. We're going to talk about that because I've been waiting. Actually, we've had a couple Wolfpackers on there, but typically it's not. So we got to stick together.
Okay, we will. We will.
So, Linda, I'll start with you. Can it kind of help us understand, how did you get here and end up at the Literacy Council?
Well, it is a strange story. When I graduated, I went to NC State and to University of Tennessee for grad school, and ended up spending about 15 years in and out of prison. I was a probation and parole officer.
That doesn't surprise me.
A lot of people. A lot of people. Super interesting job that really prepares you for life. And I did that for 15 years. Ended up getting a job with the school system, and that was something that I was interested in. I had young children, and I thought I'd like to have some time to spend with them. My first Christmas break with them, I was like, what was I thinking? 2 weeks with the kids? But no, I was the pre-K director for Gaston County Schools for 23 years. I retired from the state in 2016, went to the Partnership for Children for a short period of time, and then ended up as the director at Gaston Literacy starting in May of 2017.
Okay, so it's been going on 4 years, a little over 4 years.
I've been a little bit over 4 years.
Okay,
yeah.
Very good.
She's our fearless leader.
So maybe going to the school system was kind of similar to working on in probation?
Well, many of the same people. I would be making some home visits, and they go, Miss McConnell, they're on probation. I went, no, I'm with the school system now.
Okay, well, that's good.
But both are great places. And important.
Well, again, thanks for sharing that. Annie, how did you end up at the Literacy Council?
I actually started at the Literacy Council as a volunteer. And in 2019, I was offered a position as one of the coordinators for the Reading Soulmates program. And I have been recruiting, training volunteers, as well as pairing those volunteers with second grade students across Gaston County ever since.
Okay.
And I love my job. Don't tell Linda, but I would do this free of charge.
I heard that. Maybe
good to know.
Maybe some of the board will hear this as
good
well.
To know, yes.
Which I saw that I know a lot of the board members, so maybe we'll get them to at least listen to this episode.
We will.
They will triple our listenership. So we'll make sure we come back to hear more about the Reading Soulmates program when we have a chance. So, Linda, can you kind of share with the listeners what the specific mission is of the Literacy Council?
It's really pretty simple. It is to provide an opportunity for citizens of Gaston County and in our surrounding areas, because we often get Cleveland County, Lincoln County, some Mecklenburg County, just to be able to come to a place and improve their literacy skills. Gaston County has about 15% of its citizens who do not have a high school diploma and often are considered to be functionally illiterate, which doesn't mean they can't read, but it means that they have trouble maybe understanding how to take a prescription or how to follow doctor's orders with an illness or hospitalization. So just having a place that they feel safe. It's free. Our services are all free. Gaston Literacy just wants to provide a chance for folks to be able to come and improve their literacy skills.
So maybe I'll come back to this question. I'll elaborate on it, but this can sometimes be a long question. I mean, I think we're talking about the next question I like to talk about is what are initiatives, specific initiatives of the organization. Maybe I'll start with you, Annie, where you can maybe kind of elaborate on the Reading Soulmates, and then we can kind of expand. I know sometimes people might think Literacy Council, well, we're just teaching people to read, but I think it's a little more involved with that. So maybe, Annie, can you kind of elaborate maybe on some of the initiatives and specifically what you're involved with?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk to you about the Reading Soulmates program, and I will preface what I'm about to say by saying just cut off my mic if I start to ramble too long about this, because I could really talk forever about this program. We have one of those
James Bond buttons. If you go too long, actually that was Austin Powers, where you just disappear down into a hole under the chair. So Amy has control of that. So.
Okay, good to know. Well, about over 20 years ago, Gaston Literacy partnered with Gaston County Schools to implement the Reading Soulmates program.
Okay.
And while we started out in a handful of schools, we have grown to include 12 schools across the county. And I want to read those to you because I do not want to omit anyone. But we are currently at Sadler, Woodhill, Lingerfelt, Rankin, Lowell, Gardner Park, North Belmont, Belmont Central, Sherwood, Catawba Heights, Pleasant Ridge, and Carr Elementaries. And what this program does is we basically pair trained volunteers with second grade students who have been identified as being at risk of being retained because of reading below grade level.
Okay.
And in addition to reading, our tutors provide guidance, they provide encouragement, support, and motivation. They really try to make their students realize that reading is fun and instill a confidence in them that really extends beyond the classroom. Our tutors work for 30 minutes with their students weekly from October typically to May. And because they spend so much time with their students, they really develop a relationship with them. Speaking from past experience, you get really attached to these children, and it is hard to say goodbye at the end of the year.
I'm sure.
But our program can probably best be summed up by referring to it as mentoring with a reading focus, because that's what it basically is. It's a successful program. In 2018, 2019, 98% of the students participating in our program achieved reading gains. 50% of those attained grade level reading by the end of the year, and 20% exceeded grade level reading by the end of the year. So we're super excited about those stats and think it just shows what a successful program it is. At the end of each school year, we gift our students with a hardback book. For many of these students, they have never owned a hardback book before, which is hard for many of us to believe. But they've never had a book of their own to just take home and keep and start their own personal library. So it's a very special gift, and we are so thankful to those organizations and foundations and individuals who make those gifts possible. Having given a shout out to those organizations, I'd also like to give a shout out to our volunteers who Without our volunteers, this program would not be possible. They are exceptional individuals who give of their time weekly to these students. They invest time and energy and really are invested in their students' lives and their futures. If anyone is interested in becoming a volunteer, I'd love to talk to you more about the program and any opportunities available. I am sad to report that we are currently on pause. Our program is currently on pause because of the Delta surge. We are hoping to be back in person with our students. If we're not back in person by the end of October, we will most likely set up some virtual sessions between students and volunteers, much like we did this past spring.
So, one thing it comes up almost every episode just because of what we're dealing with, but I try to avoid the
C word.
You know.
It's a 5-letter word in our house.
Yeah, it's so anyway. So a couple of statistics. No idea how I can say anything around here. So 98% improvement, 50% reading level
attained
reading,
grade level reading.
Grade level
so they all start out
and then 20% exceeded.
Exceeded.
Okay, so this may be an unfair question since I didn't preface this with you, but roughly how many kids are you touching with that program? Say in a year's time.
Well, in those
pre-COVID, let's say maybe pre-COVID or
our last. Before the pandemic struck, we had 228 students that we were serving.
Okay, that's a big number.
And those stats, though, referenced, it was the last full year of complete data that we had.
Okay,
so it was
good.
Before the 228 students, and I think that data references 83 students that we had during that year.
Well, it's just good. I mean, I like hearing this. It's nice to get tangible information and data that you can place on a program because, it's especially for donors. And of course, at the end, we're going to be letting everybody know how they can help, how they can volunteer, where they can go to learn more. So we'll be sure to swing back to your point about looking for volunteers because unfortunately, I'm sure the need is going to continue to be there. So that's great. I mean,
and I will say this, we did have the opportunity to go back into the schools this summer. We worked virtually with our students this spring, but we're back in the schools in person this summer, which we thought would bode well for fall. Right. But we were back with our students and we saw that we are needed more than ever. I mean, it was amazing to see the difference between the year prior and even the spring to what we were dealing with this summer. I had some volunteers who said, Annie, we're not even working with reading. We're learning letters. So we're needed more than ever.
Yeah, I would say that this virtual stuff that we've learned how to do here, say at GSM or with anything I'm involved with, has been good, but the face-to-face is just so much more important, I think, in everything we do, whether you're mentoring.
It's just more engaging.
Yeah,
it's more engaging. Even watching a football game, my husband and I were saying just to have the fans in the stands, so much more enjoyable from our vantage point, even at home.
So that is a good example of very strange to watch all those athletic events with no one in the stands. That's just strange.
The energy's not the same.
No, it's not. So, Linda, are there any other initiatives or things you would like to just share or point out going on with the Literacy Council?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have several initiatives that are going well. We have folks who are preparing to get their GED or their high school equivalency. They're able to right now do all of that remotely. We set up accounts for them. We test them to find out what level they need to start on. And have folks working toward that. Our biggest program right now is our ESL, our English as a Second Language program. And prior to COVID, we had about 225 students from about 27 different countries. Folks always say, where do most of your folks come from? Most of them come from Colombia in South America. But we have them from Asia, China, just a variety of places. And we certainly, we are able to offer classes via Zoom right now, but we sure miss seeing those folks face to face. We also do citizenship, and we generally have about 5 to 10 folks each year who earn their citizenship. That's one of the neatest things that we do. And in fact, we have gone to several of their ceremonies that they have over at the immigration office in Charlotte. And they're generally around 100 folks who are going to say their pledge and take their oath. And they have the American flag, and they're just so proud. And I said, I sit there thinking about how so much I take for granted of being a citizen and all that affords. And they are in tears and so thankful. The president is broadcast up on the screen. We sing the national anthem. Lee Greenwood sings God Bless the USA. It's very moving. It's very moving. And, families, they're very dressed up. It's just a super, super exciting thing. So we're happy to have that, and we're still running the citizenship. We also do financial literacy, where folks can come and learn about how banks operate, how to buy a house, how to get yourself out of financial trouble if you've been a fraudulent, something has happened with your credit, how credit works. It would be good for everybody, to be honest. We also do some one-on-one tutoring where we have students who come in, and it may not be appropriate for them to be in a class. It may be that they need to be with a one-on-one person sitting with them. So lots going on. Certainly the pandemic has not been good for our number of students. It's very difficult, I said, for those of us who English is our first language, to understand and be able to navigate Zoom. If English is not your first language, it's even more difficult. And it's hard to teach ESL with a mask on also. But we're hanging in and have some good, dependable, loyal students.
That's good. I don't think I knew. Everything I've heard, I've kind of been aware of, except for the citizenship. I don't think I was aware of that. So that's interesting.
Yeah, we've had that for a while.
So that's really, I bet that is quite the ceremony. And to your point about taking things for granted, choose my words carefully, but there's a reason why people are trying to come to America.
You're right.
For the most part. So I'll just leave it at that.
They have some hard situations that they've come from.
Oh yeah.
And all of our students do have to provide that they are here legally, have legal documentation. So,
can kind of just sticking with initiatives or stories, can either one of you share a specific example or a story related to one of the initiatives where maybe an individual or a family was helped? Or
I've actually got two.
Okay.
Yeah. The first one is really pertinent right now. Two of our ESL students have just recently been hired by the health department and are contact tracers. And they are working with the Spanish-speaking community and super proud of having that kind of job. Called and left us a message about what they're doing and super excited. Still going to take their English classes, but I'm so proud of them. The other is a fellow that we had come in about 2 years ago. He came in over Christmas break, and things were very quiet at the office, and I met with him and talked with him, and he was 38 years old and was not a reader. He had hidden that all of his life. He had a job. He had a good job, and he had worked there for a good many years, but he had declined opportunities for promotion because he was afraid that he would not be able to read emails that would come to him or other instructions now that he would become a supervisor for his employees. But he cried in the office, and when I see him now, he'll still say, you made me cry. Nobody's ever made me cry. And I was like, Antoine. But he still is working. He's a hard-working student, meets with a tutor generally once a week, and has taken a better job. But he told me, he said, my uncle, my wife, and I think not even his daughter knew that he did not really know how to read.
Oh, wow.
And just the energy that it takes to keep that hidden.
Yeah, I mean, again, talk about taking things for granted. There's two things that come to mind. First is, I can pick up a book and do that. And to your point, Annie, about maybe some of these kids not having any books. I mean, I can go to my house and I have a couple of bookshelves that are pretty much pull any book off of it. And then, I think too, English speaking, we're spoiled not just here, but when you travel. English is a pretty prominent language when you travel abroad, and so we even get spoiled with that we're able to in most places. I mean, I've been to places where was unable to communicate. But for the most part, so I would also imagine somebody when they're coming here and they can't speak English consistently, that would be intimidating in a very difficult circumstance to have. So no, I appreciate you sharing that because those specific anecdotal stories especially are really nice to hear. So this is a question for both of you. So maybe start with you, Annie. Can you share with me what are you most proud of accomplishing at your time at the council?
I'm most proud of the growth that our program, Reading Soulmates, has undergone. Mary Deely, my partner in crime, my co-coordinator.
I know Mary very well.
And we have more than doubled the number of students served, the number of schools served, and the number of volunteers involved. 3 years ago, we had 83 students, 6 schools, and around 50 volunteers. Pre-pandemic, we expanded, more than doubled our numbers to include 12 schools, 228 students served, and 121 volunteers. So we'd love to continue to see those numbers grow. We just need more volunteers to do so.
Yeah, I bet, you and Mary together would be pretty powerhouse. That's a powerhouse volunteer duo.
Well, I said, are they not perfect? Are they not perfect for that? Those positions.
I think we're both shocked that we get paid to do this because we love it and we love working together.
Well, maybe after this podcast, that's
I know
the
Mary
board.
may get me. Mary may get me.
This may change that. So.
And they're happy to work for nothing. I'll talk to them and I'll go, now put that's work. You're working, and they're like, no, I just don't want to do that. But they are perfect, and really, you've just about tripled the number of children.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So what about you, Linda? What are you most proud of accomplishing?
Probably most recently, just being able to transition to remote. When we closed our in-person classes down last March of 2020, we scrambled around for about 2 weeks trying to figure out, how long is this going to last? Is this something long-term? And having no idea how long-term it eventually would become.
And still, yeah.
And even, I said, every time we talk about getting students back in the building, there's some kind of a surge. So we're going to quit talking. We're going to quit talking about that. And, but yeah, that was a pretty proud accomplishment. Another thing that we've done that's not really related to instruction is we finally were able to get our carpeting and our paint replaced, our carpeting replaced. The building we rent from First Methodist Church, I don't know how long the carpet's been there, but it's been a long time.
I'm sure it has.
I remember when it was Belk's toy store, and I don't think it was carpeted then, but it could have been.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I don't know.
So we finally have a very nice looking, modern, updated looking facility.
It looks great. It looks great. Very inviting for when the students do arrive.
So this may be kind of a dumb question now, but because we've already talked about so many things, but is there anything else you would, maybe start with you, Lynn, any other way you would want to just say, why is Gaston County better? Because the Literacy Council is here. We've kind of already shared a lot of reasons, but.
You're right, and it's very related, but every student that we touch, it doesn't just affect that one particular student or their family.
Right.
It reaches our whole community. When students have better literacy skills, they can take better care of their own health, which reduces health care costs for all of us. They can communicate with the school system, with teachers, help their children with homework. They can vote. They can take part in what's going on in our community. If you don't understand how things work and you can't speak the same language, whether that's English or another language, you just can't participate as fully in a community. And rather than being a person who's on public assistance, you can be a part of a thriving community.
Okay, that's great. So the impact, like a lot of things, is exponential.
It is.
It's
It's one of those
individual.
priceless.
Right. Anything you want to share on that?
Again, I think Linda addressed that question in such a great way. The only thing I would add is just with Reading Soulmates, I think we really try to intervene early and get these, and we target second graders for a reason. They're still not very self-conscious at that age. They don't mind being pulled out of the classroom. They're actually thrilled to be pulled out of the classroom. But as they get a little older, they're somewhat more self-conscious about that. And we just want to intervene before they get so discouraged that they really check out of the classroom. And I think that impacts graduation rates and then everything else that Linda alluded to.
Yeah, I would agree.
All of the societal implications of that.
Absolutely. I think there's some quote from somebody famous. I can't remember who it is, but it basically says it's better to, work with build a great child as opposed to trying to fix a broken adult. And that's kind of
that's true.
This is a lot of ups. What I like most about what Literacy Council is doing, it seems to be a lot of upstream work. It's not just emergency services or reacting to some bad thing going on right now. It's helping upstream, which I think is so critical for so many organizations. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add one other little piece of information that a lot of the students that we work with would not otherwise receive that one-on-one time. They are below grade level readers, but they're not so far below as to qualify for special services or outside services. So if it weren't for our program, they wouldn't really get that one-on-one. Teachers have their hands full in the classroom. Sure. They've got 26 students in a class. They don't really have time to just devote 30 minutes to one child. Parents are doing the best that they can. Some are working multiple jobs, trying to get dinner on the table, trying to get their children to school. Our volunteers really provide that one-on-one that allows these students to just learn and grow as readers.
That's very good. So, Linda, if you could look 5 to 10 years down the road, how do you envision an organization? What's it going to look like 5 to 10 years down the road?
Well, I as our county is becoming more diverse and we're getting more people from different places coming here, I would love to see our building filled with full classes every day, night classes, maybe some Saturday things, maybe even have something like childcare. We have students who have to come in the afternoon or come in the morning because their children are at school. So when schools shut down, then of course that affected some of our attendance.
Sure.
But love it to be a gathering place where they could come and talk with one another, share resources, and just a gathering place for many folks. And I do think even with those who are working toward a GED or high school equivalency, that when you talk to other people who have been in your shoes and just get a little bit of support that you can do it. I'll talk to folks and they'll be, in their 50s or 60s, and I go, you just have to chip away. Just you have to start. You won't ever get to the end if you don't start. But I'd just love to see us really thriving. And with Gastonia downtown growing, and I just think it could really be a neat place to be.
I think, ideally it'd be nice to not need an organization like this, right?
Well, you're right. We could put ourselves out of business with Annie's program.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But to your point, that's unfortunately, I can't envision a time where that would probably be the case, but it'd be nice. Annie, anything you want to add to that?
We would just love to continue to grow the Reading Soulmates program. I know Mary and I would love to see Reading Soulmates in every elementary school across Gaston County. Just need more volunteers.
Well, we will see what we can do to help with that. So is there anything that I haven't asked but should have, or anything else you'd like to share about the organization? We'll come back to, obviously, the Literacy Council before we're finished, but we're getting ready to move on to some really important questions here shortly.
I just would like to add, we have a great board. When I first came in 2017, we had a great board. And, we have a couple people roll off and get new people. And I was very worried. I was like, this board is so good. It just can't maintain like that. And every year, it seems to get even better and better. We're fortunate that people approach us asking to be on part of our board.
Oh, that's good.
And folks, you can stay on for 2 terms, and we generally have that happen. folks don't want to roll off. So
Are those 3-year terms?
those
or-
are 3-year terms,
Okay.
yes.
Very
Yeah.
good. Yep.
Yeah.
And I looked, and I did doing a little research. On the website, I did see it's a very strong board.
It
So,
is. It is.
I just wanted to add that Gaston Literacy Council is a family. Linda has set the tone for this family atmosphere at the Literacy Council. Whether you are a staff member, a board member, a volunteer, or a student, everyone feels welcome as soon as they walk through those doors. And we try, like any family, to encourage and support one another. We have tried to maintain connections throughout the pandemic. We, as a staff, have held outdoor lunches in the breezeway. We've participated in Healthy Gaston challenges together, celebrated baby showers. I mean, even with students, holiday socials, gift exchanges. We have, even during the pandemic, tried to send just a little gift or remembrance to our teachers and school principals to let them know that we're still thinking of them.
Those connections matter. Yeah.
They do.
So, kind of before we move on, what advice, maybe Andy, start with you, what advice would you give someone wanting to get involved with either an organization like this, either from a volunteer standpoint or a career or...
Just like in our training sessions for our volunteers, we tell them that the only requirement is that you possess a willingness to want to help a student on their journey toward literacy. It's that simple. Folks are always asking, do I need to be a former teacher? Do I need to have any background in reading or English? You really do not. You just need to possess that willingness to want to help, and you have to pass a background check.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So you still got the job, Linda?
Well, some things don't show up after many years. So.
What about you? What would you get anything different that Annie?
Not really.
Okay.
Call us. There are lots of opportunities with Reading Soulmates. Some of our one-on-one.
Okay. So before we move on, kind of in a typical pre-COVID month or year, I mean, how many volunteers do you typically have, and then how many would you say that you could use? Is that a
Typically,
that's a hard
we
number?
had about 125 or so volunteers, and they were mainly with Reading Soulmates.
Okay.
We do not use a lot of volunteers with our adults. We have
Okay.
certified teachers who teach our classes. Many literacy councils do use volunteers as adult teachers, but we have been fortunate to be able to use certified folks.
Okay, well, that's good.
We could use as many probably as we could get.
Okay.
Because there are so many schools who have asked us to implement the program at their individual school. But again, we're limited by volunteers. But we thought we were going to expand to another elementary school this year before we were placed on pause. And we will hopefully get there before the end of the year.
Okay, very good. We're going to shift gears here just for a couple minutes, and this is really what people are wanting to hear from the two of you. This is today we call it something different every week, but today we're going to call it "Did you really grow up in Gaston County?" round of questions. Okay, so Linda, we'll start with you. So, what is your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
I gave a lot of thought to this.
Okay.
Actually, it's the hot fudge cake. It's huge. I could eat off 10 meals off of that. But
So, just to clarify, you said hot fudge
the hot
cake,
fudge
and
cake.
the question
It has
is,
ice cream. It has ice cream.
So, what kind of ice cream is on it? Because we're going to.
Vanilla.
Okay.
Even though that's not my favorite. But.
Okay, so for the first time, somebody's completely taken the question in a different
And not
direction.
answered.
Annie,
these
what-
illiterate people.
What about you, Annie?
I'm going with the classic. I'm going with chocolate. Chocolate cone, chocolate milkshake. Can't beat it.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've been over there and said, I'm going to do something different, and I get a chocolate milkshake. So maybe I will actually do something different one of these times. Okay, Sundrop or Cheerwine?
I'll go Cheerwine.
Okay,
Sundrop.
Sundrop.
I keep waiting for it to be declared an illegal substance. But
Well, I know. Remember,
But I love it.
I distinctly remember when I was in college, coming home and taking cases of Sundrop back with me to Raleigh because you just couldn't get it up there at the time. I think you can now in some places, but back then it was not. All right, Annie, start with you. Favorite local restaurant?
Webb.
Yep. Web is a common answer and a good one.
It's a gem here in Gaston
It is.
County.
You know what? It really is. Linda?
I love web also, but I really love Black's Barbecue.
Okay. Saying Black's Barbecue tells you that. Yeah, you're from Gaston.
I am. I do love Kyle Fletcher's onion rings, but
Okay.
going with Black's.
Eventually, we're going to get some advertising dollars out of all these press we're giving these people. So, Annie, favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County?
Hiking Crowder's Mountain.
Crowder's Mountain's terrific.
Oh, it's wonderful. Another gem.
Yep. Linda?
I like biking, bicycling, and hiking in the Greenway.
Okay. Yeah, Greenway's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Spent many an hour on the Greenway myself. All right. I may just ask one person this question. So we'll start with Annie.
Okay.
UNC Duke or NC State?
I am sorry, Stephen. I'm sorry, Linda. But go Hills.
Oh, God.
Sorry.
Maybe we'll get Sumner Group edits this for us. We'll just edit everything now that Annie has said. We'll just edit it all out.
She coughed badly. So.
Linda.
I'm a Wolfpacker.
Absolutely.
But I have paid tuition for a child to UNC, but a Wolfpacker.
Very good. Well, I married a Tar Heel, so
You know what?
We have a mixed marriage, so it's all good.
You know what? We are so fortunate that North Carolina truly has so many great schools to offer.
Yeah, I have one at Western Carolina at the moment, one at Appalachian State at the moment. Wife went to Carolina, I went to State. Most of my family went to State, so yeah, you're right. It is.
We do. We have
It
some
is, it is a great
state schools.
It's a great system here. Linda, what is something very few people know about you?
Well, I tell about everything, but I ran a full marathon in 2014.
Wow.
And I use that term run loosely. There was some walking.
You finished a full marathon.
I
in
finished,
2014.
I finished, and I passed some people at the end, and this man said, "Look, that woman is still running."
Where was that?
That was in Myrtle Beach,
Okay.
a very flat landscape, but I was pretty darn proud.
That's terrific. Yeah, listen, I've ran a lot of half marathons, but I've never run a full marathon. So,
Let's do it, Stephen.
so good for you.
It's impressive.
I have no desire for that. Annie, what about you?
I know I hate these questions.
That's exactly why I asked that one.
I am an open book, and two, I'm boring. I have just decided I'm pretty boring. I did allude to the fact that I like to walk earlier, but I have actually logged in over 1,000 miles this past year. Walking.
Wow.
COVID got me outdoors, doing being active. I have a friend who gets me out there on days even that I don't want to be.
And that's legit. That's 2.5 to 3 miles average per day for the entire year.
I know.
That's pretty good.
But I can't run. I am so impressed by the marathon. I could walk forever, but it's hard to run out of a burning building.
Amy, have you ever walked 1,000 miles in a year in your life?
That's a lot. That's a lot of miles.
Yes, it is.
It's also a lot of talking while I'm walking. I probably would not be able to do it without a walking buddy. We try to solve the world's problems in the process. Don't think we quite get them all solved, but we come pretty close.
Let us know when you do. Okay, we would appreciate that. So, Annie, maybe a recent book or blog or article that you've read that you would recommend? Or
I am in my summer reading phase, so I haven't read anything too profound lately, just entertaining. But one summer read that I would recommend would be The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Davies. It was very entertaining, and it's probably a good discussion book. Talks about how well do you know someone,
right.
Including a spouse. But getting ready to read something called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then hoping to read something a little more profound with Scott Kelly's Endurance.
Oh, okay.
Linda and I have a great time recommending different book titles to one another. And Mary Dealey and I are in a book club together.
Oh, okay.
So we
Very
like to
good.
read. We like to read at the Literacy Council.
Am I right? Scott Kelly was the astronaut.
The astronaut.
Yeah, that was up
the International
for
Space
extremely,
Station.
maybe for
yes,
the most.
for over the most time
Yeah,
of any other astronaut.
Yeah,
yes.
that might, I'm sure that would be interesting. Mm-hmm. Linda, what about you?
This is not a recent book, but certainly one of the best I've ever read is Stephen King's 11/22/63. It's
Okay.
about time travel back when Kennedy was
Wow,
assassinated.
yeah.
And I remember I was in
Even I
fourth.
recognize that date.
Well,
yeah.
it's a super good book.
Even though it was before I was born.
Well, I was in fourth grade. And it's about a teacher who travels back in time to try to stop the assassination and has the knowledge of how things occurred and also changing other parts of history, which doesn't like to be changed.
Oh,
It's
sure.
a super
Yeah.
good book. It's hugely thick, and at first I was like, I can't even hold this, but it's worth reading.
I think I learned on Star Trek, you don't want to mess with time and time travel. You can mess everything up. And historical fiction is good. I mean, I really like books around historical events that give you a little different, a little different view. So, thank you for answering those critical, important questions. So we'll get back to the Literacy Council. So maybe Annie, start with you. If besides the Literacy Council, why do you think, or why would you say Gaston is such a great place?
I think what sets Gaston apart from other counties is its sense of community. We really have so many individuals who are willing to give of their time, talent, and treasure. We have so many great not-for-profits that are willing to partner with one another. We have my favorite event that I think captures the essence of this community, the Community Foundation Run, where we have all of these individuals and all of these nonprofits come together for a shared common goal of making Gaston a better place to live and work. And I just love that. And we have Black's Barbecue and Tony's Ice Cream.
That's true. That's a good point. And you know what? And very unique thing. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Community Foundation Run and have been involved both from a runner and a volunteer standpoint at the event. So it's a great event.
Hope we can be back in person.
I hope
we can
so.
be
What is
back
it?
in
3?
person this spring.
I guess are we working on 3 in a row?
We
Because
are.
3 years ago it was a super storm. I was
Yeah.
actually already sitting out there, and then the last 2 due to which we will not name. So, Linda, what about you? Why would you say Gaston is such a great place?
I think we've got a good location, and we are big enough to have opportunity, but we're not too big to lose our connections with each other.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm always asking, where somebody lives or who they're related to or where you went to school. I like making connections to folks.
And it's so funny you said that. I remember when my children were all in town, particularly when they were in high school and they were driving, I would tell them, I may not see what you're doing, but somebody who knows me will tell me what you've been doing.
It's funny how that maybe has changed a little bit. Oh, yeah, but I just think you remember, I would leave in the summer when I was young and I would go out. But, yeah, every parent communicated with each other and we knew that we better – and we knew which parents to watch out for, and they would be on my parents knew more than I realized when I was that age. I have learned later that they knew much more than I thought they did.
And even as an adult, I remember I was at the grocery store, and for some reason I left my wallet in the buggy. And before I checked out, I realized, I must have grabbed someone else's buggy because I don't have my wallet in here.
Yeah.
And someone had turned my wallet into customer service. They called me. I went and got it. My mother-in-law called me the very next day and said, I heard you lost your wallet at the grocery store. So people are watching.
Welcome to Gastonia.
I know, but so fortunate to be able to raise our children here. It's a great place. It's a great place to grow up and to live.
I agree. So, Linda, if you were involved with the Literacy Council, what do you think you would be doing?
Oh my gosh, I love to work, and I love to help people feel like they matter. But I also love to travel, and I love to eat, and I love to travel and eat, and
all good things.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So you would be a
maybe
travel agent food critic.
Yeah, maybe like that Bob Garner on North Carolina Weekend, and he always is tasting something.
I have no idea who that is.
You have no idea?
No.
Oh.
I'm sure our listeners do, though.
Yeah, he's been around a long time, and I just wonder how many different ways he can go.
You can practice that one. Annie, what about you?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, I love this job. I really can't imagine a more perfect job for me. Again, I might end up becoming a professional volunteer.
This might be the best recruiting. This is going to be just recruiting for more volunteers and staff for the Literacy Council.
But if I were to do anything different, I could see myself as a school guidance counselor or someone working in college admissions.
Oh, okay. That's very good.
Annie is very enthusiastic. I'm sure y'all can't really tell. And told me on the way over she'd had some a coffee frappuccino kind of thing. And I was like, oh, my gosh,
Excellent,
I should have brought your leash.
Well,
Hold her
what?
down.
This is fantastic. Yeah, the passion and energy is obvious for what you guys are doing. So I appreciate that. So I think I say this every time, but this actually is my favorite question. So Andy, I'll start with you. If you could look back, I know it's just a couple years ago. What advice, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Well, my family lovingly refers to me as the CEO of OCD. And I would tell my 20-year-old self, and I continue to tell myself this today, to not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
I try to not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, when you're 20, I shouldn't say when I was 20, yeah, it was a lot of the things that seemed like such a big deal really weren't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's a easy one, but thank you. That's a great one to share. Linda, what about you? Since that was just 3 or 4 years ago.
Just a few years ago. I wrote down a couple, but be brave, be kind, have fun, and laugh a lot. We take ourselves so seriously sometimes.
Sounds like a bumper sticker. That's good.
I remember I said it to Dr. Sadler years ago. Life is too short, laugh a lot. And then I thought, gosh, should I have said that to him? Don't take life too seriously is what I told him. I said, just don't take it too seriously.
I was so lucky. He was actually, Dr. Sadler was my junior high principal and my high school principal because I happened to be at Greer for 2 years, and then he moved to Ashbrook, and then so I had him for 5 out of those 6, middle school or junior. Actually, it wasn't middle school then; it was junior high and high school then. So I was really fortunate to have him as my principal for that many years.
He was on our board also.
I was lucky enough to serve on a couple boards with him too, the Community Foundation, and maybe my first time I was on United Way board, I think he was on there too. So yeah, I had some great interaction as an adult also with Dr. Sadler. So. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing that about your 20-year-old self. So this has really been good. So here's another really important question. So where can listeners go to learn more, find out about volunteering, maybe contact you guys directly? So what's kind of the best way for them to do that?
Probably our website, gastonliteracy.org, and it's got our phone number there. You can call us. It's got a way to reach us by email. You can come by. We're right downtown across diagonally from the conference center, and we're generally there Monday through Thursday about 8:30 to 6, and half a day on Fridays often.
So I saw you as a Facebook page as well. I mean, are you active at all on social media?
We are. We do have a Facebook, excuse me, and a little bit of Twitter, and I don't do those. Somebody else does them for me, but yeah, Facebook we do try to keep it fairly current.
So I guess there's contact information, maybe like an email as well. They can contact you off of the website.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would be like the number one? Is it Reading Soulmates is probably the biggest need going forward once we get past this event?
Yes. As far as volunteer opportunities, yes.
Okay.
We are always looking for volunteers because the more volunteers we have, the more schools we can serve.
What about, are there any other events that you do if without COVID, any events coming up or anything that...
As a matter of fact, we do have an annual Meet the Author event.
Right.
It's usually every May. We have had to cancel the last 2, and we're scheduled for May 4th of 2022.
It's going to happen.
Fingers crossed.
It's going to happen.
We hope so. We have Karen White as a guest author who's been waiting in the wings now. This will be her third scheduled appearance, but we have some great authors. I will say it's generally sold out very quickly. We want to be careful not to advertise too much because folks get upset that they can't get a place. But we may do some additional events around that, maybe something the evening before, but that is our biggest fundraiser.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think we've sent a group every last few years
you absolutely
to that event.
We have to put them at the back. They misbehave.
Oh, I'm sure.
we thought you might go.
So is Amy, that means you've been a few times, if they've put you back in the back? Okay.
We were afraid Stephen might show, so we wanted to get y'all back.
Yeah, that's why the police are escorted in there too. Okay. Well, again, guys, I can't thank you enough. This has really been good. So we're going to kind of finish up here. This has been a great episode, but something that we do at the end is similar to some of the questions we asked, but I have a personal book recommendation. And this week is actually the first time I have a repeat author. I recommended a book by Sean Acor, several episodes ago, but he has a great book called The Happiness Advantage. And Sean Acor is he's I guess a positive psychologist is the way you would describe what he does, but he's somebody I follow on social media, and I actually get a weekly blog of his, and he's just somebody who I really admire. And again, The Happiness Advantage is just a good read about kind of getting the most out of the daily experiences that we have. And then the quote for this week is one I picked simply because of, I think, similar. It's a good quote related to what the Literacy Council does. We mentioned earlier about a lot of this upstream work. And so this is one of my favorites from Robert Louis Stevenson, who said, "Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant." And so I think sometimes we want this quick results, and sometimes things like the Literacy Council, you may not see some of the results for a while, but there's no question that it's making a big impact on our community here locally. So thanks again for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. I think I've said this before, was somebody just please send us an email. I think we've gotten 2 emails maybe since we started this, but we do know somebody's out there listening, because we're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at our website, gastonsgreat.com, and please follow us on our social media platforms. You can also find us and subscribe on most podcast services such as iTunes, Spotify, and Google. I also understand that you can rate podcasts, so if you have the inclination to give us a 5-star rating, we sure would appreciate that. I think that helps us get out to maybe go from 50 to 60 listeners. So thanks again to Linda McConnell and Annie Anthony from the Gaston Literacy Council for being our guest today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Amy Anderson and Elizabeth King from GSM Services, and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.